Okay, so this is our newest thing. We were trying to figure out how to get out here without permanent fencing. So here's our cows, and our chickens are going right behind them. We put their feed wherever there is a manure patty. They get all their feed and scratch it all up and spread it all out into the field. We just moved the sheep right behind them. So this is where they were yesterday. And you can see the sheep all kind of came over here. They came around the corner and came up here, and they were coming from this area. They had kind of a larger space. So this entire area from the house over has now been run through with animals and fertilized, and the chickens go through every morning and kind of pick through everything. So we're just filling up the water, and this was kind of our solution for how can we get them in the middle of the field without any fencing. So this is a 3-inch PVC pipe, but we also got 2-inch PVC pipes. Either one will work. And we just put it over a T-post that was driven into the ground. And then we took these, the temporary step-in posts, and put them on the sides that we needed to connect to, and hung our reels off of a heavy zip tie, if that makes sense. So we have them kind of on the corners. So our reels for the sheep come in this way, and we have 3 lines, and they actually run all the way down because we're going to be using this whole space like a section every day of this week. And those are just set up with step-in posts, and we run those 3 reels, and those are all electrified with a solar energizer. And then this is just where the cows are. So if you had cows, it would be a lot easier. We just have one zip tie that we hung our reel on, and our reel goes all the way down to another T-post at that corner. And so we're doing the same thing coming off of that fence, where we're setting up T-posts and just sort of setting up a a square where they can be. So here's the cows, and they actually are ready to move on in less than a day to another section. They've been grazing plenty, so we're probably going to move them a little early, and then the sheep will come in here tomorrow, and the chickens will have a chance to clean everything up, so that way the sheep won't get into any of the grain that was left behind for them. We really haven't had any issues, but just in case, we'd rather the sheep not get into any of this and the chickens get through all the grain. Hey, Miss Tilly. So here's just a close-up of our beef cows. I'll walk up to them. They're a little less friendly than Miss Tilly. Still friendly for beef cows, but you can see that she still has some flies, but really not terrible, because the chickens help keep that pest cycle down. And we do have just a small, it's just a very small herd. So this is what it looks like. We take their grain, we leave it in a 10-gallon bucket kind of close where we're working, and then we just kind of walk around with a scoop and throw it on their patties while we're checking out the pasture. This is the mama cow. She's due at the same time Tilly is. This is Rosie. Hey, Rosie. And she is a South Pole cross. Her baby will be able to be registered. Hey, Gus. Gus is huge, but he's still like a puppy chasing grasshoppers. Rosie wasn't quite sure how she felt about him at first. They've been checking each other out, and it's actually worked out well having him in a separate section, so he's not chasing anybody around. But she is due at the same time. So in October, we hope to have 2 calves, one from her. I know, is that bothering you? They're biting you? You won't let me help you though. One from her and one from her. And then our other 2 open heifers are not pregnant, and they are being raised for meat. They are also South Pole crosses, but we will potentially try to breed them when we go to rebreed Tilly and Rosie. And if they happen to get pregnant and give us another calf, we won't be selling it in the South Pole, like marketing it as a South Pole calf, but we will, it would really mainly be for our family. So you can see that there's still a little bit of that white on her face. The South Poles are a cross of 4 different breeds of cow, and one of them is a Hereford. So I'm not sure if she gets the white from that or if she was just a really good commercial meat breed. And the farm that we got them from, you know, had been breeding cattle for well over a decade, and they were very acclimated to this area. So they do really well on the type of forage and grass and everything that we have here. Gus, no! Leave it. He wants to play too much with the sheep. He's good about listening, but he needs to leave the sheep alone. He hasn't hurt them or anything, but sometimes he wants to chase them, and I don't like that. So these are our sheep. They're a Katahdin Dorper mix. Interestingly enough, all their moms were pretty much white, and all of their dads were white, and they came out like this, which is so funny. So they just moved on to this new area where the cows were before them, and they'll clean up whatever the cows didn't eat. And they'll be ready to move on to this section tomorrow. And then we're going to be getting ready to reseed our pastures for the fall. So our choices of grass are, we're going to be adding a fast pasture mix from Nixa. There's a store in Nixa that sells good seed mixes, and so that has, I believe, it does have a Kentucky 32 fescue, but it's a friendly endophyte variety that does not have the fungus issues that the Kentucky 31 fescue has. I did not know what any of that meant before I moved here, but I get it now. So for those of you that get that, there's some issues that can develop with the Kentucky 31 fescue, and hopefully this fescue will not give that issue. It'll also have Timothy and orchard grass. Anyhow, we had someone looking for a neighbor, so we will be planting that pasture mix. We'll also be planting an annual rye grass to help us get through the winter, because normally this, although it looks green to people that don't live around here, normally this would not be this low. Like, your grass would really be up a lot higher and ready for a second hay, and as you can see, it's not. So we're putting in something to help us get through the winter season that hopefully will take. And then in this far back area, we're hoping to turn into a winter stockpile area where we can strip graze back from our trees all the way back to where our workshop is. And so we're going to be planting a cereal rye there, which is different than an annual rye, and it should hopefully, if it takes do well there. We're also going to be putting some turnips and radishes in our fields, which act like a good forage. The cows will actually eat the tops off of them, and the deer will come and like kind of dig them up, and they'll help break up any of that hard compact soil, and they'll reach down further into the ground and pull up some nutrients into the pasture and get some of the nutrition that's further down in the ground and pull it up where we want it, where it's more nutrient available to the cattle and to the pasture. So we did have our pastures tested, and the pH actually wasn't terrible. I guess Missouri tends to have low pH soil. It wasn't that bad, but we definitely want to make our pasture as take as good care of it as we possibly can. So that's our plan for now. So this week we'll be moving the animals, and we will be reseeding wherever they have been with whatever we can put in now, but most of it we kind of need to wait until September or the middle of September to put in, because it does better in the cold weather. And then just making plans for the fall. So we're learning, definitely trial by fire here. I feel like we've learned a lot in the last few months that we've been here, but we still have a lot to learn. So anybody who has tips for us or suggestions, we would love to hear them. But for today, this is what our multi-species grazing, regenerative agriculture, land management looks like on a very small farm. So we're just a 20-acre farm, and our pastures in the front here are about 13 acres. And so we move our cows first, and they will move ahead one section for tomorrow. And then we move our sheep behind them to clean up the area where they've been. And depending on how big a section we give them, we usually give them a day or two, and just take a look at the land and see if they're ready to move. And then our chickens, I think it would be a lot easier if they were closer to the pasture, but they actually come from way behind the property, and they come all the way out here because they know there's food out here. And they come and they take care of all of the spreading of the fertilizer and everything, and make sure that there's not as many flies. So they will eat through the fly larva that is in the patties, and then they will help break up that pest cycle, so there's not as much fly pressure here. So the chickens will do that work for us. And if I were to walk through all the areas where the animals have been, you actually wouldn't really see where they've been. Let me see if I can find an example. It's kind of hard to find. Okay, so like for example, this used to be a manure patty. They've scratched it all up and spread it all out. It's all back down to the ground level, and they have spread all that fertilizer out, and there's no more issues with the flies breeding in those manure patties, and they'll do that throughout the whole thing. Our hope is, if you can see up there, we have a couple of chicken tractors that have guinea hens and chickens in them that are younger than our other laying hens. And we are in the process of moving those so that they'll come behind our cattle, and we still need to finish making a couple other chicken tractors. So those will be more for forage, and they will be a lot more helpful because they'll be out in the area where the cattle are, and they'll be spreading all of that a lot more easily. The problem is they're still so little that if we were to let them out of the chicken tractor, they would walk right through the electric fence, and guineas tend to disappear. So we're waiting until they're a bit bigger and the chickens are a bit bigger before we let them out of the actual tractors, but we do move them daily onto fresh grass, and eventually they'll be working with all these guys, and they'll just kind of be going around and around and rebuilding the pasture over time. So before I end this video, a really interesting thing is I'll probably do a video soon about what we found when we took soil samples after we had our pigs in the area in the other pasture. It was really quite impressive how different the nutrient levels were where the pigs had been compared to where they had not been close by. So that was interesting. So like, subscribe, and share to Full and Family Farm. This is what it looks like here today. We're going to be starting the school year with the kids soon in a couple of weeks. We're trying to get things done before we have more time spent on school stuff. And have a wonderful day, a wonderful, blessed day.